guys for showing up here again. Another 88 Industries interview and spotlighting some amazing individuals, some amazing people. I have the great honor of having this amazing woman here, which I have to say is something that I have been looking forward to. Marilyn Zimmermann. She is somebody who I have great conversation, had a good opportunity to meet, and just get an understanding of the person and who she was, who she is, and where she came from in regards to the art community. So thank you again, Marilyn, for being here. I am completely honored to have you here.
Carl, I mean, this is fun. You are a great. It's just been fun talking to you, and I'm looking forward to this.
Awesome.
It's an honor.
Well, thank you very much. If you can, as I always ask, usually in the beginning of these, give me a rundown from your perspective as to the art community when you first found yourself in Sioux Falls, when you first started coming out with your artwork, and to now, how things have changed.
Wow, it's been really nice here. It's been great. I mean, I think so. I started. I kind of slowly evolved into just becoming a photographer and just taking my film camera along on camping trips, or doing a lot of bicycle trips and sort of incorporating it that way, and just finding out that I just loved it. And meeting some of the local artists. There was a woman, Marianne Larson, who was a photographer, still is at the time, and just doing very down to earth kind of photography of her own perspective, and she was really sweet, and just I would go to the shows and see her there, and just was drawn to her work, and so she was real sweet about giving me just natural instruction and tell me what she did, and it sort of evolved from there. But I've always loved downtown Sioux Falls, even before it became downtown Sioux Falls. Some of the buildings were really ugly and just basic and no improvement, and fences around them, and but I still could sort of see what was happening, what could happen, and I'm not saying I had a part of it, but there were a lot of people some of the former mayors who really got the Greenway going. I mean, I'm a cyclist, and I remember my husband and I would in the 90s would take our kids on the bike trail, and so I sort of could envision what Sioux Falls what would happen here.
Right.
I came from Colorado Springs. Wow. And it's a much bigger city. Yeah. And Sioux Falls is really coming to be a very beautiful, bigger city. Yeah. And but I think there are a lot of ways that we have the advantage, because there's the mindset of making bike trails. Yes. And making the city beautiful, and really the downtown has really the improvements have been just amazing. And so it's been fun being a photographer and watching the city improve and being able to photograph what the restoration has been. And the Greenway is fun to photograph the trees. And
what would you say the biggest change in downtown Sioux Falls has been since you could remember?
Just the way that the city fathers and the people who are in that planning, the Sioux Falls, what is it, Sioux Falls First, or First Sioux Falls, or the businesses and the city planners have been able to really revive downtown and bring in the arts, coordinating with the small businesses, right, and really promote it, and being willing to make the changes that have been made as far as widening the roads or narrowing the roads, or right, doing the different improvements like the Falls Park forward. The last 2 mayors we have had, I think, have been great with really encouraging that, and the arts scene has been awesome. We've got some like yourself, amazing young talent. I'm really excited about people like Hannah and all the new young artists. It's great. That's
awesome. Well, we can appreciate that. I mean, it's it comes to those who have set the path before us, and I think that is a part of, if anything, what I would like to be able to present here is that we may be the new artists, we may be the new community, the new culture, but it started somewhere, and we always have to go back to that. We always have to pay homage to that and remember where we came from, the people who set that tone for us.
Well, and I do have to give a mention to, or really kudos to Deb Klebanoff, who really started the Sioux Empire Arts Council. I was a part of that when it was in the horse barn.
Wow.
And I was able to display my artwork, and we had a little shop there. So it really gave a very nice venue that wasn't horribly costly.
Yeah.
And then of course the Museum of Visual Materials, when that was built, and that was actually donated from the lady who started it as more of like a legacy and a way for people to display their artwork. It's a great venue there too. So there's really that organic feel now, and it's growing even more.
Now I know, given that it's Women's Month, we have a lot. There's a lot going on in regards to women's rights, women equality. I know that in the realm of artistry, there has also been a fight for women who are, who speak loudly through their artwork, to be heard, to be seen, to have a place to display their work. Being a woman artist, being female artist, have you noticed, and have you noticed a change from when women were trying to come out with loud, bold artwork to the way we are seeing loud and bold artwork from women now? Has there been a hindrance before? Is there still a hindrance now? Is there a stronger foundation now, more so than ever, that you're noticing?
I've seen all along women who have definitely made a statement through their artwork. I wish I could remember some of the names, and it's there have always been women who use their art in that way, and I appreciate that. And then there's also women who come at it from a not strictly business point of view, but very very business oriented women who have given a venue to other women.
Right.
So some of the shop owners have been a great women shop owners.
Yes.
There are still now
Yes.
quite a few, and there are women who are involved in the development, and so that is a very like on the board of the Museum of Visual Materials, which I was kind of the token artist on for a while. I was very appreciative of doing that. There are women on that board who are very support and very influential in the art scene, and are even able to put forth corporate money to support and do donations. And so I do think that it's been a great venue for women to get their artwork out there, watercolorists and ladies like Hannah, and just all the different artists of all different mediums. Yeah, I think it's been, and I can see it's a very welcoming atmosphere for that too. So I think if people want to come in from some of the colleges and have things going on, that women can, I think, definitely feel comfortable and welcome.
Well, that's good to hear. That can be appreciated. Getting into it, where were you born?
I was actually born in Germany.
Oh, wow.
And my mother was a war bride, and my dad was a soldier, so World War II. And I'm number 6 of 7 kids. And so we were back and forth between the States and Europe. And so I was just an army brat born in Germany and don't remember any of it. I had to go back later and visit my family in Belgium because my mom is from Belgium. So, and then we just lived in the States. After, when I was 18 months old, we came from Germany to the States. Lived in Oklahoma and Missouri, and then my dad retired to Colorado Springs. So I pretty much grew up in Colorado Springs, and then moved here in '79. Met a guy in Colorado and moved here, and have been here ever since. And pretty much have called Sioux Falls my home for almost 39 years. Yeah. But ready to kind of make a change, actually.
Now, changing, you have some things that have come up that have taken your ventures elsewhere. And what are these things that have happened?
Becoming a grandma.
How does that?
It's a game changer.
Yes.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I always used to sort of humor my grandparent friends who would show me pictures of their grandbabies, and now I'm that grandma. I never got it until I had my own. So we have a daughter in Spokane, Washington, who has a little, almost a 1-year-old. Winston is his name, and he is amazing. So he just lit up our world, and we don't really have any family here. My husband and I, both of our parents on both sides are gone, and neither one of we have 2 children. I have our son Matt, who is in the military, so he's always moving around the world and a career military. Plus, he'll be going into he's a master scuba diver, so he will find a place somewhere on a coast, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And go into marine biology when he retires from the military and gets his degree. So we're going to move to Spokane, and he's fine with that too. So we're going to sell our house that we thought we might retire in, but we're going to move to Spokane and just start a whole new chapter.
Awesome.
It's going to be great.
That does sound amazing. Going back to your family, Germany, you said you were born. How far back from that can you trace your family lineage?
I wish a little further.
Yeah.
My husband's mom, she went way back to, like, so many generations to the crest. He's actually German. I'm not German.
Right.
But I don't really know very much. I think I can probably go back maybe 3 generations on my mother's side, just from what she's told me. And then not very far at all with my dad's side from Norway.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so.
You had mentioned your mother being a war bride. Is that what you would... I don't want to assume, but that being her title, was that also considered her profession?
She actually didn't really have a career, but she was a very dedicated and very accomplished. She did housekeeping, and she did a very good job at it. She got a lot of awards. She worked in a military hospital and did housekeeping there,
right,
and got a lot of accommodations and awards and did a wonderful job. And self-taught how to speak English from speaking French.
Wow.
I always used to tease her and say that she should have been an electrician because she loved television, because that's how she taught herself to speak English.
Right.
By just watching television. That's why my name being Marilyn, because she was a Marilyn Monroe fan. And but she wired up her whole satellite and set all the speakers up and could pretty much just figure out, troubleshoot if there was something wrong with this gigantic satellite in the backyard. And anyway, I told her she should have been an electrician. She's a very, very intelligent woman, but just didn't have a formal education.
Man. So, your father was in the military. Mm-hmm. What branch of the military was he in?
He was in the Army.
Okay.
And infantry. And he retired after 24 years as a master sergeant.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's really, I love the stories that my mom would tell of when they met and how they met, and the stories of, my dad had to get approval from his commanding officer, and they didn't really encourage marriages, but there was a lot of that going on. And my mom would tell the story of how they locked eyes at the swimming pool, and she fell in love with his thick, red-headed self, and they had to talk with books. They had to translate by talking through books.
Wow. That's impressive. That doesn't happen anymore. Now you can do Google Translate, it seems.
And I still do with my family in Belgium. I went back to visit with my daughter a couple of years ago, and it was wonderful. We went into Amsterdam and, traveled around and did that exact same thing. I would speak French to her, and she would speak English to me. And now when we talk to each other on Facebook, I just pop everything into Google Translate, and then it doesn't come out always perfect, and she can tell. She laughs at me, and she says, "I can tell," but we can still communicate. So
that's awesome. You'd mentioned you are one of 7 siblings. Where are you at in that line, and who are the other ones that you have?
Well, I'm number 6, and then I have a little brother, Danny.
Okay.
He's not so little. I mean, he's 8 years younger than me, and then the oldest brother was 24 when Danny was born, right. And so we've actually lost 3 of our brothers, and so there's 4 of us left. My 2 older sisters, and then my little brother Danny and myself.
Awesome. What was your family dynamic like?
Chaotic. Crazy, chaotic, competitive,
Yeah.
loud.
And you say competitive. How so?
Sometimes a little bit combative. I mean, I think that's just a normal thing with that many kids.
Sure.
And I, admire my mom and dad. Now that I look back and only raising 2 kids of my own, I can appreciate what the struggle was for them, and a lot of like rivalry, but also good memories. I was number 6, so I had a lot of freedom. I think my parents were just tired by the time I came along, and I had a lot of freedom. I was a tomboy. I was always out on my bicycle, constantly chasing the horses in the fields behind us, and swimming in the irrigation ditches with my friends, and going, exploring and doing archaeology on our own, and digging for fossils in the stream beds, and I mean just
Did you ever find any?
total. No. But it was a wonderland. I mean, we had just open miles and miles and miles of. We never found the other end of it because there were no other housing developments and stuff. And then as I grew older, the fields and parks behind my place that developed into a big neighborhood. Now it's totally different.
Wow. Going back now, I'm sure.
Yeah, way different. Very, very different. I call Sioux Falls home. It quickly became my home. It's a wonderful little town. I hope people appreciate it.
Sure, they might come to. What was the most significant impact of your childhood, and how old were you?
Ooh, most significant impact. Huh. It might not be just one particular incident or anything, but probably just that freedom that I was talking about.
Yeah.
It allowed me to be very creative. I was sort of the black sheep of the family. I kind of got a little bit teased about being a know-it-all and being very artistic, and just I was definitely my own. I kind of marched to a different drum, definitely. And so, yeah.
Would you say that that set the tone for where you find yourself now?
Oh, yeah. I think I'm really fortunate to be married to a great man who's sort of more quiet and deliberative, and sort of that whole opposites attract thing.
Right.
And so he is my rock. He's pretty much, my stabilizer. He's very, just predictable almost, but then keeps me grounded. Right. And I'm more adventurous, and he allows that. I've got a pretty wide circle of friends, and my bicycling has been a huge part of my life, and I've had a lot of adventures, and formed Thursday Ladies. It's a ladies bicycling group, which is just taken off on its own. It's just taken a life of its own, and so done a lot of exploration with my camera. And
Speaking of that, you had talked to me about the distance that you have traveled on your bike. I know I've mentioned some people that I know, but you have traveled quite a distance across the country.
Yeah, I love, and it kind of started when I started doing some of these charity rides, these weekend multi-day rides. I started riding in 94, 95. I would go on the American Lung Association rides out in the Black Hills, and then the reason I really started doing those first was because my father had died in 91 from lung cancer. So I did the first ride since I was liking cycling. And so I was like, well, that's a great cause, fundraiser. And so I would ride in honor of my dad. And I did that for a couple of years, 3 years. And then in 1998, I was working part-time at a local bank and a call center, and I would go home for lunch. And so I was always subscribing to the bicycling magazine. So I went home for lunch that day and picked up my bicycling magazine out of the mailbox and sat down at the table and was going to have a bowl of soup, and flipping through it. And I opened it up, and it had an ad from the American Lung Association of 3,000 miles, 1,000 riders, and it had this person standing on the edge of this big ridge line with all the trees and everything, and the sun rising, and standing there with their bicycle. And I was like, I've got to do it. So it was basically advertising that you would have to raise $6,000, and we would ride from Seattle to DC, and it would take 45 days. about an average of 80 miles a day, and it was for the Lung Association, and it was called the GTE, Big Ride Across America. And that's just how I am. I'm very spontaneous and serendipity and impetuous to a fault sometimes, but I just decided that minute, I'm going to do this. It was like, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
There was no looking back.
No question.
And so that night, I went back to work and I came home that night and I showed it to my husband. I was all excited and he was like, okay, right, yeah, sure.
He didn't believe it.
Yeah, he was like, yeah, sure. And I mean, I'm a great starter and I'm not always good at following through.
Sure.
But this one was one that I think it was meant to be. So I started doing fundraisers at work and talked to my manager, and I was really, really fortunate to have a manager, a supervisor that was very, very encouraging and even gave me the time off, paid, or not paid, but unpaid. So I took my vacation and then I got unpaid, and they guaranteed me my job, so they gave me like a little leave of absence and even donated $1,000 to the cause.
Wow.
So I would do cookie drives and lay my, like tons of cookies out there, and people would just throw the money in a bucket and made good money, and it was all $10 donations, $25 donations, small donations. Ended up raising like $6,700, and it was great. I mean, it was amazing. Just saw it was like, I think it was like 13 states that we went across.
Yeah.
But from Seattle to DC.
And that was the upper 50 or the upper 49. Right?
Well, we went like across Washington and Idaho and Montana and a little bit of Wyoming, and then right across South Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, all the way down, and then across Pennsylvania and Virginia, and it was crazy. I probably left out some states, but it was amazing. And then when I came back, my husband started riding too. He was like, okay, if you ever go on a ride like that, I'm going with. And so I found out he had been riding while I was gone, and he became a very strong rider too. So we did like the Allegheny Trail, and we did the Katy Trail, and rides up in Wisconsin and Minnesota on the different rails to trails and the Black Hills. And so just been riding ever since. It's just amazing.
That is inspirational.
It's fun, and anybody can do it. It's like 90% mental and only 10% physical.
Right.
It really is.
Get a bike. You can do it.
Oh, it's a blast. You got it. South Dakota is a great place to ride too. Regardless of what you might think, it's not.
I've come to understand that people here in South Dakota, at least in this area, are very aware of bikers. There is a unspoken understanding that you see a biker on the side riding, you move off to the side as much as you can for the room. And I've never had an issue here, not once. And I have to say that the trails that they've gone into, just putting into, have been amazing. Yeah. So much space, so much just open. Oh,
there are some great people in Sioux Falls, especially Sam Trevelcock is in the engineering department of the town, and he has a bicycling committee, and then there's a lot of people that I've been friends with. I used to be on that committee, and a great advocacy network going on in this town. So as the town grows, the biking is going to grow as well.
Wow.
It's pretty cool.
Well, one of my favorite questions to ask, and even more so insightful, I believe, is when did the pursuit of artistry as life's work rear its head? Do you remember what inspired you?
My bike across the United States, bicycling across the United States with my camera. And I actually had a camera that a friend loaned me, and I feel really bad because it got dropped at the end of the trip and I broke her camera. But Mary Devlin was one of the inspirations. She's another photographer, a friend of mine, and I worked with her at the place that I worked at when I did the bike trip. And so we're still friends, and we've done some different projects together as far as selling greeting cards with our photography in it. And so as being an artist, that's probably influenced me the most, because I can get to places on my bicycle that I wouldn't think of stopping to take a picture if I was in my car.
Right.
Or my husband is like, yeah, that's pretty okay. We just we keep going. So the bicycling has always been I've gotten some beautiful scenery and some beautiful perspectives, and that's sort of my niche is my antique bikes, and so that's the combination of my two biggest passions is my photography and my bicycling. But I also love to bead. I love doing just different kinds of creative artwork. I like to do embroidery, so I kind of do dabble in a lot of different types of artwork. So I plan on doing some different things that way too.
Awesome.
I like to refinish furniture and antiques and vintage and restore and refurbish and resell, that kind of thing.
That is cool. That is awesome. With your work, your photography at least, ideally, how do you want your artwork to be perceived?
As just a different perspective on the world.
Yeah.
And the complexity in the simple things. And to really extol God's creation. So I firmly believe that there is a creator, because it's just too miraculous to be just by chance.
Right.
And so it's my way of going, look at this. Wow, we have an amazing creator. We have an amazing existence that allows us to just be. And so it's like the little kid bringing their Crayola art and mom or dad putting it on the refrigerator and going, yep, that's my kid. And I think that it just maybe helps people to look at everything a little bit differently and to really examine and to focus in and not be too distracted by the mundane things in life.
Right.
To find beauty in the mundane, to stop and smell the roses. It's a cool phrase.
It's a good phrase, though.
It is.
In your artwork, what is it that you are trying to say?
Trying to say, actually, my photography is almost a selfish endeavor, just because I want to be able to capture the beauty, but I also want to dig deeper and show the beauty of just everything around us, no matter how mundane it may seem.
Sure.
Routine.
Well, I have to say you do a pretty darn good job of doing
that. Thank
you. I like to end these interviews on a interesting note. I am a big fan of James Lipton and the way he puts an end to his interviews. So I want to take his questionnaire from his honored hero, as he says, Bernard Pivot. The questions are, what is your favorite word?
Serendipity.
Serendipity. What is your least favorite word?
Rules.
What turns you on?
Surprise, adventure, time to explore.
What turns you on?
Factophobia. I'm also a very logically oriented person.
Okay.
I find the patterns and the structure of creation through my photography, because everything sort of has the fingerprints of the original artist, which is our creator, which is the world around us, which is endless from our perspective. And so I see there is that need for structure, and we follow the same patterns in our own artwork, whatever way it is, whether we like just the bold brush work of an artist who paints, because I can't paint. Maybe someday I'll try, I don't know. And I admire that so much, and the watercolor artists and just the way people capture patterns. I like to capture patterns and lines in my photography and trees. That's why I love trees, because they follow a pattern, but it's not the straight lines either. But anyway, it's so I like pattern and I like structure in that sense.
But factophobia you don't like.
Right.
What sound or noise do you love?
Birds. Birds and the sound of wind in pine trees. Just that, and lots of birds. I like the chaotic, lots of birds. I love birds of all sorts. Robins are my favorite, probably.
Especially when you can hear the different sounds from the different ones. It's awesome. What sound or noise do you hate?
Boy, I don't know if there's any sound that I really hate.
That would be impressive.
Because they're all instructional. And I am a very auditory kind of learner.
Right.
I love lectures. I don't like to read to get my knowledge. I would rather interact and view, like, so gosh. But I'd have to really think about that. Probably just loud mechanical or too annoying advertisements sometimes bother me, like car salesman or.
Hey, that's universal. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one. What is your favorite curse word if you have one?
Shit.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
It's will slip from my mouth too often, probably.
What profession other than yours would you like to attempt?
Ooh. I think it would be fun to be a photographer and a stager for stage homes for real estate and do architectural photography.
What profession would you never want to try?
I never want to go back to being in a call center, put it that way. Otherwise, I think I'd probably be willing to try anything.
Okay.
If I had the educational base for it.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
And finally, what is it you would like to see on the other side when your light in the end is extinguished?
I know I will see the face of my Lord Jesus Christ in heaven. Because if one could even imagine themselves as creator, how would you present yourself to your creation without imposing your will forcefully and allowing your creation, your created beings to live freely?
Sure.
And only come to you out of love of their own free will rather than being puppets?
Sure.
And creating a bunch of puppets on a stage, is to become one of them. And that's exactly what God did. So the Trinity is this mystery because the Holy Spirit is what makes us, gives us life and gives us a better perspective on why we're here. And that indwells us when we really accept God and for who He is. And He's manifested in three ways. And so accepting Christ was probably the biggest and best decision that I ever made, even though I think He called me. It's not something that I did on my own. So that is where, to answer your question.
Yeah. Awesome.
Definitely in heaven, which is like way beyond. I mean, it's birds and bicycling and photography and it's creation and it's mountains and it's snow and rain and trees and rivers and
all its beauty.
All the beauty that we see here in something that, I mean, because my favorite scripture is, "For eye has not seen, ear has not heard, mind cannot conceive what God has in store for those who love Him." And we're meant to live eternally. So, yeah, that's a great question, though.
Well, thank you very much, Marilyn. I do appreciate having you here. It was amazing.
It's so much fun for me. I so much appreciate it.
I hope so. I tried.
Yeah, it's great. And it's a great way to end. It's a God thing. It's kind of like a little bit of closure for me in leaving. I love Sioux Falls. I really do. It's hard to leave, but grandbabies are game changers. So
I believe that. So I've been told.
Yeah.
Again, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I do appreciate the time and the experience and knowledge and all of just the wisdom that you had to bestow. I to take it in as much as I can because that is what I learned from, and I am more than appreciative to understand and learn from those who have been before me. So, again, I appreciate your time.
I definitely appreciate this time to get to know you, too, and I'll treasure this. I will treasure this.
As will I. Thank you guys again for joining us. Another day, another great interview. 88 Industries, we engage perspective, and I do hope that you guys continue to follow us as we have more amazing people with great ideas, great perspectives, and great just things that they've gone through in life, great perspectives to be able to give and share. And that is what we're here for. So thank you again, Marilyn, and we will see you guys on the next one.